Welcome back everyone, it is Mike from ManaHoarders. In this video we are bringing you a commander deck tech for a Rakdos commander, Kardur Doomscourge. You can cast Kardur for 2 a black and a red. You get a 4/3 Demon Berserker. Whenever Kardur enters, until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. Also, whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Before we dive into the deck, let's go over a few key points. First up, the final price for this build came in at $92.32. This does include the price of our commander and all of our lands. Now do bear in mind these prices will vary greatly depending on the quality of the cards you purchase, the vendor you use, and a variety of other factors. In terms of power level, I would rate this deck around a 6 out of 10 on the power scale. We will be using a tokens strategy as the backbone of this deck. We are going to be generating plenty of goblins to send at our opponents en masse. This puts them in an interesting position where they either have to take the damage from the goblins or block and then risk taking damage from our commander's ability. We do have a little bit of graveyard recursion, so if any of our creatures go down, we can use these to get them back on the battlefield, abusing their enter the battlefield abilities and putting our opponents in a very difficult position. Now let's go ahead and dive into the deck. First up are our artifacts. Conjurer's Closet allows us to reuse any of our creatures' ETB abilities. Mind Stone lets us add an extra colorless to our mana pool. We can also sacrifice it to draw a card. Soul Ring can tap to give us 2 colorless mana, and Wayfarer's Bauble, we can pay 2, tap it, sacrifice it, search our library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. Moving on to our instants, Abnormal Endurance. Whenever the target creature dies this turn, we can return it to the battlefield under its owner's control tapped. Battle Hymn, we can add a red to our mana pool for each creature we control. Dark Ritual gives us 3 black mana. Falter makes it so creatures without flying cannot block this turn. Foul Tongue Shriek, target opponent loses 1 life for each attacking creature we control, and then we gain that much life. Grim Harvest can return target creature card from our graveyard to our hand. Lava Storm deals 2 damage to each attacking creature, or 2 damage to each blocking creature. Malakir Rebirth, we can choose target creature, lose 2 life, and then until end of turn, that creature gains. When this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. Mercadia's Downfall, attacking creatures get +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of non-basic lands the defending player controls. Rise of the Dreadmarn, we can create X 2/2 Black Zombie Berserker creature tokens, where X is the number of non-token creatures that died this turn. Seething Song gives us 5 red mana. Starstorm deals X damage to each creature at instant speed. Supernatural Stamina until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains. When this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. And Village Rites, we can sacrifice a creature to draw 2 cards. For our sorceries, Cosmotronic Wave deals 1 damage to each creature our opponents control and creatures our opponents control can't block this turn. Dragon Fodder creates 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. Faithless Looting, we will draw 2 and then discard 2. Krenko's Command also makes 2 red 1/1 goblins. Mana Geyser adds a red to our mana pool for each tapped land our opponents control. Mogg Infestation destroys all creatures target player controls, and for each creature that died this way, they will get 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. With Read the Bones, we can scry 2, draw 2, and then lose 2 life. Seize the Spoils, we will have to discard a card as an additional cost to cast it, but we can draw 2 and then create a treasure token. Sign in Blood, target player draws 2 and loses 2 life. Tormenting Voice, we will discard a card and then draw 2. Warlord's Fury, give creatures we control first strike until end of turn, and we can draw a card. We will be including 1 Planeswalker in this deck, Rowan Kenrith. The most important ability is the +2. We can make it so during target player's next turn, each creature that player controls attacks if able. Moving on to our creatures, we do have 6 legends helping out our commander. Fumiko the Lowblood makes it so creatures our opponents control attack each combat if able. Garna the Bloodflame, upon entering the battlefield, we can return to our hand all creature cards in our graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn. Also, other creatures we control have haste. The Goblin King himself, Krenko Mob Boss, probably the most efficient way to generate as many goblin tokens as possible. We can tap Krenko and put X 1/1 red goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the number of goblins we control. We also have Krenko 10 Street Kingpin. Whenever Krenko attacks, we can put a 1/1 counter on it, then create a number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to Krenko's power. A very powerful commander, Pashalik Mons. Whenever Pashalik or another goblin we control dies, he can deal 1 damage to any target. We can also pay 3 in a red, sacrifice the goblin to create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. And Varchild, Betrayer of Keldor, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player gets that many 1/1 red survivor creature tokens. Those creatures can't attack us, and whenever Varchild leaves the battlefield, we gain control of them. And for our non-legendary creatures, we have Aki Coalflinger, gives attacking creatures we control first strike. Beetleback Chief, whenever it enters we get 2 1/1 red goblins. Burnished Heart will allow us to sacrifice it and get 2 basic lands on the battlefield tapped. Eternal Taskmaster lets us get creatures from our graveyard back to our hand. Forge Stoker Dragon, we can pay 1 in a red to ping our opponent's creatures. Those creatures can't block, but we can only activate this ability as Forge Stoker Dragon is attacking. Goblin Diplomats, we can tap it and makes each creature attack this turn if able. Goblin Instigator, whenever it enters, it'll give us a 1/1 red goblin creature token. Goblin Spymaster, at the beginning of each opponent's end step, they get a 1/1 red goblin creature token with creatures you control attack each combat if able. Hellkite Charger, whenever it attacks, we can pay 7. If we do, we'll untap all attacking creatures, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Legion Warboss, at the beginning of combat, will give us a 1/1 red goblin creature token that gains haste and must attack. Mog War Marshal, whenever it enters the battlefield or dies, we will get a 1/1 red goblin creature token. Relic Robber, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player gets a 0/1 colorless goblin construct artifact creature token with this creature can block, and at the beginning of your upkeep, deals 1 damage to you. Ruin Raider, at the beginning of our end step, if we attacked with a creature this turn, we can reveal the top card of our library, put that card into our hand, and then lose life equal to that card's converted mana cost. Siege Gang Commander, whenever it enters, we can put 3 1/1 goblins onto the battlefield. We can also pay 1 in a red, sacrifice a goblin, and deal 2 damage to target creature or player. Sling Gang Lieutenant, whenever it enters, we get 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. We can sacrifice a goblin to make target player lose 1 life, and we will gain 1 life. Solemn Simulacrum, whenever it enters, we get a basic land card, and whenever it dies, we can draw a card. Spiteful Prankster, as long as it's our turn, it has first strike, and whenever another creature dies, it will deal 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. Tilinali's Summoner, whenever it attacks, we can pay X in a red. If we do, we get X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens that are tapped and attacking, and at the beginning of the end step, we exile those tokens unless we have the city's blessing. Warmonger Hellkite makes all creatures attack each combat if able. We can also pay 1 in a red and give attacking creatures +1/+0 until end of turn. And Weirding Shaman, we can pay 3 in a black, sacrifice a goblin to put 2 1/1 black goblin rogue creature tokens onto the battlefield. For our enchantments, we have Berserker's Onslaught, gives attacking creatures we control double strike. Curse of Bloodletting, we can enchant a player, and if a source will deal damage to that enchanted player, it deals double that damage to that player instead. Curse of Chaos, whenever a player attacks the enchanted player with 1 or more creatures, the attacking player may discard a card. If they do, he or she draws a card. Curse of Disturbance, whenever the cursed player is attacked, the attacking player gets a 2/2 black zombie, and we will also get a 2/2 black zombie. Death Pits of Wrath, this card really capitalizes off of our commander's second ability. Whenever a creature is dealt damage, you destroy it, and it cannot be regenerated. Goblin Assault, at the beginning of our upkeep, we will create a 1/1 red goblin creature token with haste, and goblin creatures attack each turn if able. Goblin Warrens will allow us to sacrifice 2 goblins to put 3 onto the battlefield. And a card that is sure to throw your opponents off. Invasion Plans, it makes it so each creature's block whenever able, but the attacking player gets to choose how those creatures block. And last but not least is our mana base. We are keeping things very basic with 16 basic swamps and 19 basic mountains. And just like that, we've reached the end of this Commander Deck Tech. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and leave a comment down below. Let us know what commanders you would like to see us build around in the future. We really appreciate the support.